It's that time. Everything and anything basketball, presented by The Outrage. With Kajan Thiru and host Spencer Byers, this is Polar Opposites.
Welcome everyone to Polar Opposites. I'm no longer going to be episoding it. It'll be episoded on the site on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and wherever you happen to be listening to this. But I'm going to stop saying it because we are 2-2 a week, and I think Cage and I are going to be consistent enough where it's not really going to matter what episode it actually happens to be. But Spencer Byers, Kajan Thiru Castle here with you. Our new episode of Polar Opposites. Yesterday we reviewed the Liberty and Aces game 2. And Cage, I think we got to start there. Game 2, Aces, Liberty, Las Vegas come out 104-76 winners. Cage, what was your overview of the game? I know you missed the first half because you were at work, but from what you saw, how did the game go between those two teams? People who didn't see it.
One team played beautiful basketball. The other team played like a train wreck. I don't know how I can sum it up better than that. Because first half, what had worked for the Liberty was feeding Jonquel Jones the ball. She was 7 for 10. She was 1 for 2 in the second half. 2 shot attempts. The two other she also had the third most shot attempts on the Liberty team, and yet led the team in scoring with 22 points, and I believe 10 rebounds and 4 blocks. So Brianna Stewart took 17 shots and was 6 of 17, 14 points, 13 rebounds. But I get Stewart taking more shots than Jones. Stewart is the MVP, or the reigning MVP. Although Asia Wilson did outplay her with 26 and 15. But there is no way that Laney should be taking more shots than Jonquel Jones, especially when you're going 4 for 15 in the field. But what's more concerning, aside from like the backcourt differential again, 61-31 in favor of the Aces after a 72-28 differential in game 1. The amount of times that, Spencer, me and you saw the Liberty get burned repeatedly with backdoor cuts. At that point, it's like, I don't know if it's knowing your defensive personnel or if it's just an effort thing, but it could be both. But the fact that was happening repeatedly, to a degree in game 1, but almost constantly in game 2. I'm going to be honest, Spencer. I don't see this series going past 3 games.
You and I talked about it yesterday during the stream that you and I both concur that this series, unless the Liberty finds something they haven't shown us yet, will not be going more than 3, maybe 4 games if they do have a great game 3 that they haven't shown us yet. Play a game we haven't seen yet. But we talked about it yesterday during the stream that if you missed it, I would say go check it back out, but it is just a live reactions to the game. So you can kind of hear us go through the entire, myself going through the first half, Cage and I going through the second half. But, 31 assists compared to 19 in favor of Las Vegas. I think that's the telltale sign that, the Vegas offense was based on cutting actions. They were not based off of just, ball screen, like modern offense, Cage. Modern offense being ball screens, being, a lot of off-ball screens, on-ball screens. It was a lot more cutting. It was a lot more off-ball action, which is a more old-school style. But if your defender is trying to be on the line, meaning if there was a string between the ball handler and the pass and the wing player, if there was a string attached to those two players, if they're on that line between those two players, automatically that's cut. That's something you teach at 12 years old, Cajun. If that player is up on you, you cut every time. You don't even look have the ball, you cut. Because you're going to beat them every time. Because you have a running start. They don't. So unless they're very long or very fast, you beat them every time to the basket. And Vegas did it to perfection. And there were some great passes to find those cuts, and yesterday you and I really did focus on what Liberty were doing wrong more than what the Aces were doing right, because as I think you mentioned, it was one great performance versus one bad performance, which is why the score line was 104-76 and it was a 28-point win for the Las Vegas Aces. That's why. It's because it was one team playing very well and one team playing very bad. And the score line very much showed that. And the Liberty to find something. And Kajan, for me, I know my answer to this question, but I want to know your answer before I say anything. What if you could fix the offense or the defense for the New York Liberty, which one would you pick?
Honestly, as bad as they've been defensively, I think offensively it's their biggest issue because when you take poor shots early in the shot clock or settle for threes, the Aces grab the rebound. Your defense is immediately at a disadvantage trying to sprint back. So in order to go into your defensive sets, you have to score and then reset to a degree. Quite frankly, they're not playing right. They're not playing right offensively, and they got to go inside out. Feed Jones the ball. It worked for the second quarter. That's why the Liberty got back into this and made this a bit interesting at the end of the first half. But then went away from what worked in the second half, and lo and behold, it turned into a 28-point loss or 28-point laughter.
And it
So,
got as high as 32 in the second half, Kate. It got as high as 32 in points in favor of Las Vegas.
so you just have to establish Brianna Stewart and Jonquel Jones on the inside to begin this off. If I don't see Jonquel Jones attempt like 20 to 25 shots, I said 35 before, that might be unrealistic, but 20 to 25 shots in the game, or Brianna Stewart attempt 15 to 20. Because right now they found a way to neutralize Stewart, but they haven't found a way to neutralize Jones yet. I say feed the person that hasn't going the most. If she does not get 20 to 25 shot attempts, or at least that many touches on the low block, this game 3 will not be close.
And I will continue that point, Cage, like I said yesterday, and I will continue to say until I'm proven wrong. I think the Liberty need to be comfortable knowing that feeding the post is going to make the Vegas Aces eventually double. And they had a problem with that in the first half. Brianna Stewart and Jonquel Jones, both on separate possessions in the beginning of the first half, both got tied up and gave up jump balls to Kelsey Plum. That cannot happen. When you're being doubled by arguably the shortest player on the floor and they get a jump ball off of you, that's a problem. That is a problem. Because that will not only make you question of getting the ball into the post because you don't want to give a free jump ball, even though you would exactly expect your center or power forward to beat the point guard or shooting guard, I guess, in Kelsey Plum in a jump ball. That still does not stop the fact that you lost that position at the low block. So the Liberty need to find a way to either be comfortable with the double, if it's Jones or Stewart, or you find a way to create an action that gets you open looks that you can consistently make, because they've struggled from behind the arc in this series, which is a big reason why they're not being competitive in these games. It's because they're trying to shoot themselves into the game, and they're quite literally doing the opposite. They're shooting themselves out of the game. And you mentioned something there about the defense, about is it personnel or is it effort. And Kajan, to think we have to ask that question in Game 2 of the WNBA Finals, that's a problem. In and of itself, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Like that, those are questions you and I should not be asking going into a do or die Game 3 on Sunday that you and I will be doing again on Sunday. With a quick look at the date on the calendar, it'll be October 15th. That's a problem. You know, like effort shouldn't be a problem in the WNBA Finals. Personnel shouldn't be a problem in the WNBA Finals. Like it shouldn't be in the NBA Finals or the NHL Finals, Stanley Cup playoffs, or the Super Bowl, the NFL playoffs. That cannot be a question, or there will not be a chance. And as we've seen through 2 games, Kajan, there really isn't a chance to Liberty because they haven't played well in either Game 1 or Game 2, other than maybe the first half in Game 1, even though I think that's more the Aces did not play really well in Game 1, the first half. So, it's a struggle for the Aces. And we'll see, I guess, struggle for the Liberty, pardon me. We'll see if the Aces can clean sweep them and be the 9th team to beat a team that was down 2-0 in the WNBA Finals. Because again, teams that are 0-2 in the WNBA Finals, 0-8. 0 for 17 total in the playoffs. So
if they don't get it together, it'll be 0-18 and 0-9.
it will be, Cage. I completely agree with that. It'll only be adding to the loss column if they don't find a way to get something going between New York and Las Vegas. Again, Game 3 will be in Brooklyn, though. We'll be at Barclays Center, where I believe the Brooklyn Nets play, might I add. But we'll see. We'll see if Liberty can do it, Cage. I don't see it. I don't. But I guess we'll have to see. We'll have to see. As we'll now quickly move over to Damian Lillard making his debut, at least preseason debut, with the Milwaukee Bucks. He got his start on Sunday, and Giannis was in the lineup, so both stars were on the floor together. Kajan, I assume you didn't watch the game because, no offense, we don't watch preseason basketball. God, I don't watch real NBA basketball, let alone preseason NBA basketball. But
Go on.
What should we expect? And I guess I should say that they're both making their debuts on Sunday. They have not played their games just yet. The Milwaukee Bucks have played a couple of preseason games, but they're still waiting to make their debuts, and it will be this Sunday. Obviously it's preseason, but I guess we can preview what should fans and what should we, as I'll say analysts here in this particular scenario, expect from a Lillard-Giannis duo going into the season?
Well, for one, for this season, there's going to be some growing pains. There are going to be some growing pains on both ends of the floor. And you would think, maybe not so much offensively because Lillard can let it fly from like 30 to 35 feet out, and then Giannis has free reign inside the lane and in the paint. But that's not easy to do. But that's not easy to establish early on, unless you're, say, the 2008 Boston Celtics, or when Kevin Durant played his first season with the Warriors. There's going to be some struggle offensively, some cohesion. Like there might be like your turn, my turn thing at the beginning, like sometimes KD and Russell Westbrook did back in OKC in the clutch. I think the biggest adjustment is going to be defensively, because Damian Lillard is not even close to being the same caliber of defender as Drew Holiday was. In fact, during his Portland days, he was probably a net negative. So I think that's the biggest adjustment, because you don't have that point of attack defender anymore in Drew Holiday. And instead, it's Lillard that has to buy into the defensive philosophy from the Bucks. Also with a new head coach too, might I not add, in Adrian Griffin. So I think the fruits of that labor aren't really going to show until postseason time. I think this regular season is going to be a case of tinkering to see what works best, not only for the two of them with their two-man game, but also with the Bucks' schemes on both ends of the floor. I think there's going to be moments where their talent and their dynamic potential will shine, but there's going to be moments of struggle, especially early during the regular season. But I think going through that will pay off come when it matters most, which is the postseason.
Well, I also do want to mention, Cage, that this team is not just like a short bench team. They have Brooke Lopez still. They have Malik Beasley now as well, probably most likely coming off the bench. Obviously, they have Robin Lopez. They got some guys still there. Cameron Payne, who they just signed recently. Obviously, of Giannis and Lillard and Middleton. Like, this Bucks team's pretty deep too, which even makes you a little more worried for the other teams in the East, including the Boston Celtics.
And I believe they still have Connaughton.
They do still have Pat Connaughton. And Bobby Portis, who I don't want to mention, and Jay Crowder. So this Milwaukee Bucks team
Hold
could probably
on.
go 10 deep.
Why do you not want to mention Bobby Portis? Why do you not want to mention Crazy Eyes?
Oh, because he's a bum anyway. He's a bum. But anyway.
8 off the bench.
Huh?
15 and 8 off the bench.
Yeah, when he's playing against the reserves, when it's garbage time, maybe. I don't know. Like, just not my guy. You know what I mean? Not my guy. And before we keep moving here, preseason action continues in the NBA. A couple of European teams, Cage. A couple teams from non-NBA leagues have been playing in the preseason this year. A couple big wins for some NBA teams, specifically. Just looking at the Scott box scores. Washington crushing I don't even know what the name of this team is, but they're called the Taipans, 145-82.
Karen's Taipans, who do play at Scotiabank Arena against the Raptors on Sunday.
Well, there you go. And then you got the New Zealand Breakers, who lost 106-66 to the Portland Trailblazers. But I think, Cage, the funniest one is, again, some other teams are playing against some teams that are not from the NBA. The Dallas Mavericks. Luka Doncic, former Real Madrid point guard, played against his former Spanish club of the EuroLeague and the Spanish top division. And Los Blancos beat the Mavericks 127-123, and it was a dagger at the end of the game for Madrid to be able to pull away from, their former star player. And I'm not sure who actually won the EuroLeague this year as I quickly go look, Cage, but, does this add to Noah Lyles' point we've talked about throughout this, the duration of this show, since he said that the NBA champion is not a world champion, they're a national champion, which, again, he's not factually wrong, to make sure we continue to say that point. It is more just a feeling that he's wrong because, no offense, but the EuroLeague does not compare to the NBA talent-wise.
After this game, I think he's right. To say the least, he's speaking straight facts. If you're wondering why I'm saying it in that manner, I'm being sarcastic.
And actually, Kajan, before you continue, I will quickly say the current reigning champions are Real Madrid.
Well, there you go.
Real Madrid are the 11th time champions of the EuroLeague. Most championships, as well, might I add, are Real Madrid. So, they are a top-class club. Not even trying to take that away from them. But I still think the reality is, Cage, that, Luka Doncic played 4 minutes against Real Madrid, and they only lost by 4.
Well, in fairness, Real Madrid has players that have played in the NBA before. Gershon Yabusele, a former Celtic, 18 points, 9 rebounds. Facundo Campazzo, former Nuggets point guard,
And he got
20,
the dagger at the end of the fourth quarter.
20 points, 6 rebounds, 8 assists. Rudy Fernandez played for the Trailblazers once upon a time. Hit 4 threes, had 14 points. Mario Hezonja is on that team, and he was drafted. I'm not sure what draft it was, but I know it was
He
5th
still plays
overall.
basketball?
He does.
Oh my god.
And he was drafted 5th overall by the Magic. Well, that was a great draft pick, by the way. I believe Vincent Poirier and Eddie Tavares played in the NBA at some point in their careers. And so did Sergio Rodriguez at one point. I think he played for the tanking Sixers back when the process was in its infant stages. So they do have NBA talent there. They've had talent. They've had talent that have had a cup of coffee either in the NBA or have played a couple of years in the NBA. So is there on the EuroLeague side of things, but not to the same degree of the NBA. Can't really buy too much into that because Dallas did not. Luca only played like 5 minutes. Kyrie didn't even play. And Dallas is just trying to figure out a rotation, especially in the center position. Dallas is trying to figure things out. So I don't really buy too much into it. It's a preseason game. Guys are having fun. I don't think Dallas really like. I don't think if Dallas went into this as a must-win game, I think this score would have looked a lot more different. But I don't buy too much stock into it.
I will quickly mention that sadly, there will be no matchup between the reigning NBA champion Denver Nuggets and reigning EuroLeague champion Real Madrid, which does kind of suck, Kajan.
That was a missed opportunity. Could have proven Noah Lyles wrong, but yet Mad's laughing all the way to the bank right now with these words.
Sadly, he is. And to mention that, Cage, we've talked about rookies that have had really good performances. And I just scanned through the Denver Nuggets lineup. And a kid I really liked, because as we all know, I love me some college ball. And Julian Strother, who had 20 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists on rather efficient shooting, 8 for 12 from the floor, 4 from 7 from 3. You know, Strother playing his way into a role in that Nuggets rotation. He was an older player at Gonzaga. I expected he was going to get some good minutes because normally when teams draft older college players and not the one and dones, it's because they want a more finished product of what they're going to be. And Julian Strother is a really good player and was probably the best Bulldog this past season because Gonzaga was kind of in a transitional year after having the year with Jalen Suggs and Corey Kispert and Drew Timme, obviously, and then going to Drew Timme and Chet Holmgren. And obviously, Drew Timme was on the team last year, and he is a great player, but I think Strother was the most high upside of the Bulldogs because we all know that Drew Timme's athleticism does haunt him a little bit. And right now, he is actually with the Milwaukee Bucks, might I add. So, not trying to take anything away from Drew Timme, who is another really good finished player. But, always want to shout out when the rookies are doing well, guys who, may kind of fall under the radar just due to their draft position and what they were seen as before the draft took place. And Strother looking really good, might I add, really good for his team.
And I think on the Denver side, they really lost a lot of depth of the offseason. Jeff Green, I believe, going to the Rockets. My favorite player, Bruce Brown Jr., going to the Pacers, who I think are going to be a really good team in the East. So there's going to be a lot of guys that need to step up in new roles. And maybe Strother's could fill in that role, could fill one of those roles. Talked about Peyton Watson another one of those names that'll play more minutes and will play a more major role than he did last season. Christian Braun showed a little bit of something in the finals, especially in Game 3. He's gonna play a bigger role. Zeke Naji, if he can show a little bit of something. Reggie Jackson, they just brought back. So he's gonna bench compared to how he did last postseason. So there's a lot of guys that have to step up in major roles, and if Julian Strother can fill in a role off of the bench for the Nuggets capably, I think that'll be huge, and that'll make Denver more dangerous.
Now, Cage, I gotta mention one more team before we continue. The Oklahoma City Thunder. They have so many young guys. Like, sometimes I forget how many young players they actually have. They have a ridiculous amount of young talent. Did you know that the Oklahoma City Thunder have Victor Oladipo?
I do.
I did not know that. That is new to me. Of obviously, well, SGA, they're one of 3 players who did not play in their most recent preseason game, but like they still had Jeremiah Robinson Earl, former Villanova Wildcat under Coach Wright. They have Keontae Johnson, the most recent lovable story out of K-State last year. They obviously have, as I believe that is Trey Mann. They have, I believe that is, I want to say Isaiah Joe. It is Isaiah Joe.
It is.
Both really young players. They also, again, continue the 2 Williamses, both Jay Williams, Josh Giddey, Kaysen Wallace, who started their most recent preseason game, first draft pick out of Kentucky, Chet Holmgren, who didn't even play last year because of a Liz Frank fracture, which if you didn't know, a Liz Frank fracture is a break of the metatarsal in the foot. Normally on the bottom of the foot, might I add. But anyway. And Lou Dort, of course. Like, this team is ridiculously young. So you and I are going to probably put them rather high in our Western Conference standings. But I'm going to make sure I say now, and probably will say when I predict them where I do in the standings next year. They could go three spots up or down from wherever you and I put them. Because if everyone plays well, they'll be here. If everyone doesn't play well because they're young, they're going to be here. But if you average it out, they're going to be here. Like, they're a team, like, a very high upside, but their floor could be really low, even with a first-team All-NBA player like SGA, just purely based off of youth and having to really battle through that.
Well, I think an underrated part of what, like, we've talked about Lou Dort, SGA, but I think Josh Giddey is what's going to make or break this team. Because a do-it-all point guard, really the only thing missing for him is a consistent jump shot. He thinks the game at a very high level. And I think if he can get all the young guys together to buy in, at least offensively, with moving the ball around, that'll be huge. If he takes another step offensively, with becoming more of a threat on the offensive end of the floor, like keeping defenses honest with a jumper, with a consistent jumper, OKC will be even more dangerous.
Well, one more team I want to mention here, Cage, before we kind of move off of the preseason for a minute. The Boston Celtics, Cage. They beat the New York Knicks in their most recent game, or lost the New York Knicks in their most recent preseason game, 114-107. And I do tell a lie. It was their last preseason game. Their most recent preseason game was actually yesterday, and that was a win over the Philadelphia 76ers. But Peyton Pritchard has been really good for the Boston Celtics in the preseason. And I think he's really proving why Brad Stevens made the moves he made in the preseason, getting rid of all the Marcus Smart and getting rid of Malcolm Brogdon, because he wanted to get minutes to Peyton Pritchard without losing D. White and getting a really good point guard in Drew Holiday. And he did that because Peyton Pritchard is showing out with 17 points in game 1 against Philly, or in the most recent game against Philly. He had 26 in the first game against Philly and 21 in the game, as I was mentioning there, against New York. So he is really doing well, shooting the ball wise for the Celtics.
And that's what Boston needs coming off the bench. They really lost a lot of. They are really a top heavy team and have really lost a lot of depth. You mentioned Smart, Brogdon, but also Robert Williams the third, and then Grant Williams at the same time too. So somebody had to step up in a huge role, and if this is what to expect from Peyton Pritchard, I think the Celtics will be in good hands.
Yeah, they went from 2 Williams to no Williams in all of about a couple weeks. And I also want to mention Delonto Banton had 20 against the Knicks. He had none against Philadelphia, no points. I guess I should clarify. But, it's really interesting to see how the Celtics are kind of slowly developing a couple of their other really young players like J.D. Davison, who is a point guard out of Alabama. They drafted him as kind of a project player. We'll see if he plays any factor in the guard rotation. I don't expect he'll play much of a role, but we'll see if he does end up having any role with the Celtics this season.
I mean, that's kind of going to be a win for both of us if Boston wins it all. Because your favorite team wins, and my boy Banton from Rexdale wins a ring.
I mean, if that makes you feel better, I guess I'll take it, Cage. You can jump on the bandwagon if you want. It's okay. You're always accepted on the Boston bandwagon, Cage. You're always accepted on the Boston bandwagon. Just so you know.
Banton's from Rexdale. Let's not get carried away.
No. It's okay. No, I'm not getting carried away. All I'm hearing is jumping on Boston bandwagon. It's perfect, Cage. It's perfect. We can put that in the start of the episode. It's okay. Kajan jumps on Boston bandwagon. It's perfect. It's perfect.
Toronto gets a ring in the process because of
No, that is a fabrication at best. That's a fabrication. That is an overestimation of Delonto Banton's role.
Well, wouldn't the Larry O'Brien, if players are allowed to take the trophies to their respective hometowns, wouldn't the Larry O'Brien trophy go to Toronto?
For what, all of a day? So you can go see it for a second time and kind of wish it back to Toronto, which will never come because the Toronto Raptors suck.
Hey man, as of right now, Toronto has won a ring more recently than the Celtics. And I'm gonna live and die on that hill.
You're gonna live and die on that hill, eh?
Yeah.
Well,
for better or for worse.
I think it's gonna be for worst. As I'm just trying to find something before we go to the Scrabble board, Cage, and I'm trying to stall here to get one more piece of information before I give you the names, because I only have 2 today. I'm just trying to figure out if there's a name for this particular thing I'm trying to grab here, because I know they like naming things off of players. I think you know what I mean by that, like awards and stuff that they like to name it after people. So I'm trying to figure out if there's a name for this specifically, or if it is just called this. And it looks like it is just called this. So we're gonna quickly then just say, all right, Kajan, so I'll give you the first one. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna give you the second one first.
Okay.
All right. Now, I'm only gonna do the last 2 words of this particular. It's not a person, might I add. It's a thing. It is still a noun, just not a person. It's a thing. So IASFNL space VPM.
Finals MVP.
WNBA Finals MVP, Cage. You and I talked about it yesterday. I'm not sure if you can pick one between the Las Vegas Aces starting 3 guards and A'ja Wilson. I don't know. When you said you think one of the 3 guards will win it, I think A'ja Wilson with 30 points in game 3 is going to win it. That still remains to be seen if she'll be able to do that. But still, it is really going to be a tight race for that finals MVP. And I think game 3 is going to be a big component to who ends up winning that award.
Mm-hmm. Well, as of right now, and I'm looking at their postseason stat, A'ja Wilson is leading the charge with almost 25 points and 11 rebounds per game, almost 3 blocks, over a steal and a half. Kelsey Plum is second in scoring with 18.4. Jackie Young is third in scoring with 18 points per game. And Chelsea Gray, 16.3 points per game, 5 rebounds, 7.4 assists, a team hot. Now that's during the postseason, but if we're going finals, that's where it gets a little bit interesting because the only reason why I'm kind of hesitant in Asia Wilson as of right now, she was the fourth leading scorer in game one.
It's because you're a hater. It's okay. It's because you're a hater.
I mean, in a race that is as close as this, you gotta use slim pickings. You gotta use slim pickings and
You gotta pull a Skip Bayless and start pulling at strings, eh? You gotta start pulling out the little things, you know? Not a clutch player, Cage. Not a clutch player.
I never said she wasn't.
Well, I know you didn't.
But I don't know. Like that'll be my answer. I don't know. I guess it's whoever. I guess it's what you said. It's what you said earlier, Spence. It's whoever breaks down in game three. But if the same thing happens for like in game three, like it did for the first two games, hey, cut off a quarter of the trophy and give it to either Gray, Plum, Young, or Wilson. Because at that point,
just hit it to Becky Hammond and say, Becky, you make the choice.
I like that might be a better answer than just picking one out of the four because any one of those four deserve it at this point.
And again, I do want to mention Chelsea Gray is right now the reigning Finals MVP. So we'll see if Gray can double up on the award or if it will be passed to one of her guard mates in Plum or Jackie Young, or it goes to the third place MVP voter and has won a MVP, Asia Wilson. We'll see if Asia Wilson can add it to her CV of a litany of other things, including Defensive Player of the Year, MVP, and, first team All-Star game, litany of awards she has already. Only thing she's missing, Kate, is the Finals MVP. Might as well give it to her.
Yeah, I was gonna say that, but you beat me to the punch.
Well, sometimes I'm just a little too quick for you. My last name, Cage, before we keep moving, LGEHNOMR.
Chet Holmgren.
It is Chet Holmgren, and the reason we're talking about Chet Holmgren again is because the San Antonio Spurs played against Oklahoma City. And Victor Wembanyama and, of course, Chet Holmgren had eerily similar games in a 122-121 win for the Oklahoma City Thunder. Chet Holmgren had 21 points and 9 rebounds with only 1 block. Victor Wembanyama for the San Antonio had 20 points, 5 rebounds, 2 steals, and a block. Playing power forward, not center, but close enough with how tall and just fantastic those two players are. And to mention, Chet got 21 and 9 in only 16 minutes of play. Wembanyama had 20 and 5 in 19 minutes of play.
These two better have healthy careers. Because if they do, they're the future of the league. They're the future of the league. They're going to push the NBA into a whole other different stratosphere with their play. And I am thrilled to see Holmgren back on the court and not looking like he missed a beat. And I think if anything, like in terms of like rookie of the year,
this could be one of the most interesting races we ever seen for rookie of the year, Cage.
And I arguably think Holmgren has an edge because
he's had the extra year.
A la Ben Simmons.
I love Joel Embiid, who had 3 years.
But he didn't even win the award. It was Brogdon.
Really? I didn't think he won it, but he still had 3 years off, so he had a better chance at it.
Yeah, but he also got hurt for like half the season.
Oh, he's a Band-Aid, okay? He is a Band-Aid. We will not skip over the fact that Joel Embiid is a Band-Aid, which hopefully Victor Wembanyama and Chet Holmgren are not. And again, Chet Holmgren is coming off of a foot injury of Liz Frank variety. But I will completely admit my bias, Cajun. I love Chet Holmgren. I loved him in Gonzaga for Coach Few. Because again, I love college ball. So when you talk about, and I love Gonzaga, so I'm a big Holmgren fan. I think the world of him. I think he's going to be a great player, and I think Oklahoma City have some absolute game breakers in Holmgren and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, which is
And
fantastic to see.
Giddy, Dort, Jalen Williams too. Big role last season as a rookie. And he's gonna have another year of seasoning. So yeah, this Thunder team is scary.
They're
And I think
dangerous.
this
They look dangerous on paper.
and they exceeded expectations last season when people saw the roster and thought they had no business doing so, especially with Holmgren out for that season. So imagine with the amount of talent that they have now. And I think San Antonio will be a lot better than people think. I don't think they're going to be a play-in team, but I think they might probably win 30 games.
Which is a big improvement for a team who's been kind of bottoming out for forever, it feels like.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see. We'll see what the Oklahoma City Thunder look like with their youthful lineup. We'll see what the San Antonio Spurs look like with Coach Pop and the newest franchise quote-unquote player in Victor Wembanyama.
Mm-hmm.
But before we go, as I got to go quickly look at my lineup, I think we're gonna go first, Cage. I think we're gonna end with Charlotte with whatever's going on there after Jordan's sale. It seems like Michael Jordan's left and the whole boat's falling apart, even though with Michael Jordan the boat was already sinking. As the Oklahoma City Thunder, we keep talking about with SGA, with Lou Dort from Montreal, SGA from Hamilton. They're playing at the Bell Center in Montreal. So oh god, I was gonna pronounce it in French, Cajun, and my brain went, no, I'm not even gonna try.
What is it?
I know it's backwards. It's like center. It's the center of basically because French say backwards everything. Kind of like the Montreal Canadiens are the Canada du Montreal, the Canadiens du Montreal or whatever, however they actually pronounce it in La Québécois.
Senebel?
Oh God, c'est le but for a goal, of course. See, you can tell I watch hockey, Cage, because I'm just getting depressed thinking about the Bell Center, even though the Montreal Canadiens have been garbage most of recently, which has been great, by the way. But anyway.
Hey man, they almost beat the Leafs. Keyword almost.
Yeah, keyword almost. But so really nice to see them send a team that again is so young and it's got some Canadians on it to another arena here in Canada, because they are obviously going to come to Scotiabank when the Raptors play against Oklahoma City. So now they get to go to the Bell Center for a game that I assume SGA and Dort will play in.
I do hope they do it. I do hope they play. Cause
wouldn't it be
SGA
ironic they
did
sit them? Wouldn't
Oh
it be?
man,
Load management, Cage. Load management.
that's a great. That's a great. That's a great segue into what could be next on our thing on our list. Because holy, bro, if they go to the Bell Center and they sit out SGA and Dort's from Montreal too, might I add. I was like, what was the point of going to the Bell Center in the first place? What are we doing?
That is a very good point, Cajun. What are we doing? What was the point? What are we doing? And yes, I know that is a meme of me because, of course, because most of the time I have that reaction. People say some really idiotic
Questionable
things.
stuff. Questionable stuff.
My brain's trying to understand. I'm like, what are we doing? Why would we do that? It doesn't make any sense. What are we doing? But another thing I want to mention, Cage, we didn't even have on the lineup, but I want to say before we get to our final topic, again, because I want to end with Charlotte because Charlotte has become a dumpster fire of dumpster fires.
Mm-hmm.
Reebok, the company of Reebok, obviously the shoe brand most notably, has hired two NBA legends, Shaquille O'Neal, the big Diesel, and Allen Iverson have been added as the president of basketball for the company in Shaquille O'Neal, and the vice president is Allen Iverson. So I'm surprised that this is happening.
Yeah. As I'm reading into this right now,
It seems like they're going to be more components of the player recruitment process, trying to get athletes to the Reebok brand since they split from Adidas.
um, well, I believe AI was with Reebok for a while and had like eventually had the Answer shoe line, and Shaq was with Reebok back in the days. But this is a great thing for Reebok because at least I could say this for Shaq. Shaq is a great business. Shaq is a businessman,
And right now
and
they're successful at it, if you were going to say.
yeah. And I remember back in the days where people, and I know people made fun of me for wearing Shaqs.
If your jumper looks like Shaq, but anyway, continue.
But in an era where NBA, where basketball shoes were not affordable, his shoes were. And I think that's a underrated piece of what Shaq was. Like he thought about the average person in mind making those shoes. And like you can make fun of people for like wearing them, but they were affordable. And that means something. So bringing him on board to Reebok is going to boost their sales and boost their product sales tremendously. And AI, man, he was the pioneer of how NBA players can be themselves. Literally was the human guinea pig for the way he was kind of treated for his like fashion wear and whatnot. So you got somebody who's a great businessman, and then you have somebody that's a pioneer. That's a pioneer, and they both get along well too. It's a great thing for Reebok.
And we'll see if their expected launch of 2025 will be successful with their, I'll say, new shoes coming out by 2025, and see what athletes they can sign. Because obviously Puma's been getting into the space recently with a lot of young talent that have been coming into the NBA being signed to Puma. You still got Nike and Jordan Brand. You've still got Adidas, or as they call it in Australia, Adidas, which I prefer personally. I think it's a funnier name. There's a lot of players in the basketball shoe market. We'll see if Reebok can kind of stake a claim to being a top basketball shoe brand as they relaunch. But now we're finally here. The Gong Show in Charlotte. It continues. Michael Jordan has sold his shares of the Charlotte Hornets, so he's no longer in charge. Been no longer in charge. We reported on that, and now all of a sudden, Kajan. So Miles Bridges, who formerly was charged with domestic violence, I believe a year and a half ago or so, because he sat out all of last season due to it. He has a outstanding unserved warrant that was posed back in January. And again, it was a violation of the protection order due to a domestic violence violation. And it has never been served, or has not been served yet. The criminal summons was issued on Wednesday. So this is kind of just getting started now, even though the warrant was issued, or the warrant was issued in January, but was not served. And then to re-explain, Bridges reported that indicated the mother of Bridges' two children had her windshield smashed at her residence, and that her protection order was violated by his appearance. The alleged incident happened at her residence, the station reported. And then the AP trying to find some more information out. They weren't able to. The 25-year-old is serving 3 years on probation after pleading no contest last November to one felony count of injuring a child's parent, agreeing to do so in exchange for no jail time. He was a free agent at the time. He was up for, I'll say, Cage, quite a big extension. Floated out there that his contract may be upwards of $100 million total. He is now on a 1-year, $7.9 million contract. He had a 10-game suspension to serve going into this season, and now there's this outstanding warrant. So Miles Bridges, has really kicked an NBA career down the road and around the bend. Because I'm not going to say that this new warrant is going to be the nail in his coffin, but sometimes, Cage, you got to cut a guy loose. And sometimes the off-the-court issues take away too much from his on-the-court product. And Miles Bridges might be at that point already at such a young age in his NBA career.
This does look bad. And normally, in certain circumstances, I'd be with you. But this wasn't. But there's some developments in this situation since it was known that Bridges pleaded no contest to beating the mother of his children, which was, I don't know. I was going to say what I wanted to say, but then I realized can't really say what I was going to say.
We'll call it heinous, Cage. I think heinous is a good way of putting it.
There you go, heinous. It's a heinous act.
Not one we condone, might I add. Obviously, on this show, we do not condone what Miles Bridges has done, has been charged with, has pleaded guilty to.
But this was a summons from January, and I'm looking at articles here, and that they were reportedly caught. The Hornets were reportedly caught off guard and were not aware of this incident until the 11th of October, according to Mike Lacey, reported for Charlotte Sports Live. Quite frankly, I find that to be a load of baloney.
Fair enough.
There is no way there's no way that you would find this out 9 months after. And this is making me wonder, why is it like, if this was, I believe, as I'm going through it again, if this is dating back to January, I'm just trying to figure out, why is this coming out now? Or, well, the summons came out Wednesday, but like, if he had violated a protective order, why did it take this long? Especially with the act as heinous as that was. And another thing that I think, like, I talked to you about this yesterday, was that Michelle Johnson, the mother of his kids, and who actually posted on social media like her injuries, her physical injuries, that and like the injury, and then the official report, which was heartbreaking to see, come out and say in June. And I was looking at the dates for that because like something wasn't adding up. In June, saying that Miles Bridges was not a woman beater. And you initially said that was a load of baloney. But this was also the same person that also posted the injuries that she suffered at the hands of Bridges. So like it's just my mind's just all over the place about this. I honestly think it's capped that the Hornets did not know about this till the 11th, because come on now. Or if they didn't know, they stupid.
There's no way of pleading ignorance to something like this, Cage. And I think that's important for us to say. There is no way or reason for you to be able to plead ignorance to something like this when he has a history of it. You know he has a history of it because he missed all of last season. He's also suspended again for 10 games going into this season. Originally 30 games, but they got it down to 10 because of him missing last season, and they saying that was enough of a punishment due to him missing 82 games. So it'll end up being 92 games technically he's missed in the NBA.
See, and I think the only reason why I don't think he's going to be cut loose is because like I think that statement is just crap. That's a load of crap. It's a load of crap. They need. There's no way they didn't know about this. If it was if this was from January, if he had no, like, something's not right with this. Something just isn't right because domestic violence is a big thing. And if you're violating a protective order that you have to stay away from her, and then you break a windshield at her residence, this was in January, and it took this long to be served. A criminal service was not, it didn't come out until yesterday. And then the mother of his kids, who did post the injuries, the traumatic injuries she suffered at the hands of Bridges, said at around June on a tweet, let me bring this up. In June, actually it was May 23rd. Man has this year been very stressful and it's always mixed feelings about how I feel. Reality is everybody unintentionally, I think, what could I have done differently, because it's a lot. He's not a woman beater and all the reports aren't entirely true. And I just feel like give him his chance.
Okay, Cage, I'm just gonna say one thing off this before you continue with your point. I think what that sounds like to me is what she's trying to say is they had a fight and it was a man versus a woman and the man won. I'll say as expected, but I would say in the majority of cases the way it works out. But the reality, Cajun, is if that was the case, the outcome is still the same. You still as a man, you Cajun and myself as men, do not put your hands on no lady. No. There are exceptions to that rule, but it doesn't mean you break the rule. Like, yeah, if she is hitting you a bunch and she's literally like trying to hurt you, then fair enough. But then you don't then commit enough force to actually injure her. You do enough to get her away from you. And then you let the authorities deal with the consequences of her actions. You don't then just go, okay, fine, it's time for me to go hammer mode and just, I'll say, injure her beyond reproach. That's just not the way that works. That is not equal force at all. Because in reality, most altercations that happen this way, the man will be maybe injured very slightly, bruises, maybe. So I think that's what that sounds like to me, Cage. It sounds like she's trying to say it was an altercation more than it was just him coming home from the bar one night kind of thing. I think you know where I'm going with that.
Mm-hmm.
But,
go
ahead.
Now let me go without saying that. What he did was horrifying and absolutely should have warranted him being out of the league in the first place. It should have warranted him being out of the league in the first place, like when it came out. But the Hornets, for reasons only known to them, didn't do that. And I think this situation, like, quite frankly, has just been mishandled by the organization. Like, because let's be real here. He shouldn't have a place in the league in the first place.
You could argue he should be in prison or jail, depending on what he pleaded to. But, again, at Cage, we talked about it a little bit on this show, more of a football problem at this point than a basketball problem, but I still think it constitutes. Athletes are above the law. They always have been. They always will be. And it continues to be blatantly obvious that unless the athlete does something heinously wrong, and it's caught on film, like Ray Rice, specifically back for football, there's really nothing done. There really is nothing done. There are isolated cases of athletes being treated like normal people. Henry Ruggs, specifically, is a case of him being treated like an actual person. Michael Vick, treated like an actual person, not an NFL athlete, with the dog fighting for Vick and the racing and killing a woman and her dog, I believe, I believe it was Nevada, because he was playing for the Las Vegas Raiders at the time, for Ruggs. But, when is it going to be enough for, I'll say, prosecutors and the states, but even the teams, to say, okay, we are not above the law. If we do something that a normal human being would most likely go to prison for, you don't get to continue your $1 million career. And I don't mean it's a regular job, like you're working in an office building, or you're a janitor, or you work for the compost, or garbage people. He's making $7.9, almost $8 million this season. And he has probation. He has to meet with a PO every couple weeks. And he's making $8 million a year. Or $8 million this season. We'll see if he gets an extension after that at this point.
Yeah. To me, this has been he shouldn't be in the NBA in the first place. Unfortunately, he is. And the Hornets acting surprised that they didn't know about the summons is nah, that's cap. That's cap. Y'all do. Based off of how much Charlotte is a dumpster fire, like you mentioned, if this was almost any other team in the NBA, he would have been released. If he was on the Raptors, if he was on the Celtics and this happened,
if you're on
he
San
would have been
Antonio,
released.
I think there's a litany of teams, Cage, and you can talk about that have what we would say are good organizations. If this, I think, was Indiana, and I want to make sure I say again, because I truly believe this, and I believe you do, Cajun, but if you don't, I think that's fine. I think this is not a issue where it's black and white. There's a lot of gray. I believe in second chances. Truly believe in second chances, and I believe innocent until proven guilty. The problem is he's already pleaded guilty.
He pleaded no contest, which
is exactly guilty. It's just trying to get it's a plea deal to try to get prison time, which is exactly what he got. He got 3 years probation instead of going to prison or jail. But I believe in innocence until proven guilty. I believe in second chances. I believe in rehabilitation. I do. But because there were really no consequences to Miles Bridges' actions, I cannot confidently say he's learned from his mistake. And that's my problem. If I knew Miles Bridges had gone to therapy, had done the due diligence, has gone to better himself, not only for his NBA prospects, but actually for himself and his family that he does have, for better or for worse. If I felt like he had done those things, if I felt like he had been actually, deserved what he gotten consequences for what he did, then I feel like this conversation is different, Cage. But he really hasn't. So how do you have confidence in a guy that really hasn't had to be, hasn't really had anything taken away? He still has an NBA career. He didn't have to go to prison. I assume he still gets to see his kids. Even though in the charges it was abusing a parental figure in front of the children. That was a charge that they charged him with. That was not charged when he pled guilty, but pled no contest technically, but still. That's a problem for me. So hopefully Miles Bridges does get the help he obviously needs. and is able to right his wrongs in some sort of way. Because I keep hearing the wanting to better himself, wanting to be more active in the Charlotte community. Well, I hope that's true, but you got to prove it. Actions speak louder than words, and I think his actions in the next year are going to dictate if he has an NBA career tomorrow.
Absolutely. Like, you hit it right on the head. You hit it right on the head. I think there's a ton of people that have been responsible for how poorly this has been handled, though. Like like you said, this went unchecked. This act pretty much went unchecked, and like Bridges is the primary culprit here. But there's not a culture in place in that Hornets organization. And for a litany of other NBA teams, this wouldn't have happened. So it's just this just screams a whole mess. And I hope this gets handled in a proper way. And I hope Miles Bridges gets the therapy he needs and heals from this and actually becomes a better person from this. And the mother of his kid and the mother of his kid, Michelle Johnson, gets therapy and heals from what has happened. And also for their kids, because this has taken a toll on them. Seeing their parents on headlines for all the wrong reasons.
And I will also mention Kajan. We're going to quickly move on from Bridges to end off with this. We talked about the gong show going on in Charlotte. It continues. They've actually just waived first-round pick of 2021 Kai Jones, the former Texas product, after requesting a trade, was waived, and he will now be a free agent if not claimed by any individual team. The Charlotte Hornets, with the waive, will recur $3 million in salary cap following the move. But like obviously a lesser story compared to Bridges in Kai Jones, but still he's been away from the team for personal reasons. They didn't know when he was going to come back, or at least they hadn't released when he was going to come back, if he was going to come back. And now Kai Jones will be able to have the liberty of being a free agent and being able to go wherever he wants. But when young guys want out of your organization, when you're really struggling to keep players that you drafted in the first round, you used a very valuable draft pick on them, and they have no interest in staying with you, that shows to a lack of organizational stability, but also a lack of just having the right brain trust in Charlotte. And that's been a problem since they were the Bobcats. That's been a problem forever in Charlotte.
Mm. But I also think, like, I don't know if you've seen the videos from Kai Jones that he's posted on Instagram Live.
I hope not.
But I think you should go check them out. I think there's a bigger problem with Kai Jones. And I think and I had to see like how he was like during like a post game interview or like an interview coming out of the draft compared to now. He was definitely on something when I saw those Instagram Live videos. Like he had to. And I don't think this is more so a young, like more any other case, this would be a young guy situation. but I think like somebody's got to guide this young because the videos that I saw on the IG live that I saw of like Kai Jones, I'm like, what is he What is he talking? What is he saying? I was very confused. And
Cage, I just started listening to a little bit of one of the Instagram lives. Obviously, I haven't heard the whole thing, but I think just the first 25 seconds is enough. So if you haven't heard Kai Jones's, you know what? I'm gonna play it. Kai Jones on Instagram Live, and I mean this in all honesty, Cage, went off the deep end. Apparently on Instagram Live. Here's Kai Jones live on Instagram from his account.
Go time or there? I'm gonna go there. I had to do drugs or something. No, like back in the day, the wall time was in the long jump pit, boy. By myself, not a drug, man. I'm about to get traded. I don't think so. I just never missed a day. I don't think I'm getting traded. I think the Hornets are very high on me. If I get that call on my phone, I will pack my bag. I don't think that's gonna happen anytime soon.
I think you heard enough there. He was running around the room while obviously saying whatever gibberish Marvin the Martian that was, Cage. But I think you can just tell from about the first 30 seconds of that video. He kept saying drugs. I'm not sure if that was just the song he was trying to sing or if he was admitting something. But
he was denying that he was on perks.
well, he was on something, and I think it was a little stronger than Percocet. But regardless, he was obviously intoxicated. At what variety or what sense, I don't know. But I think that's blatantly obvious that he's on something. And I hold the same sentiment you do, Cage. I hope that they find that someone can help him. And honestly, Cage, this is an outside look. I know that he is from the Bahamas. Boston has Al Horford. He's from, I believe, the Dominican Republic. Same part of the world. I think the Celtics, could take a shot on on a guy like him. Bring him in, let Al Horford guide him through, let Kristaps Porzingis guide him through.
I think he's from the Bahamas.
Yeah, he is from the Bahamas. Or is Big Al from the Bahamas? I couldn't remember if he was DR or Bahamas.
Bahamas.
He is from the Bahamas. I was gonna say Bahamas and I got scared and said DR, but there you go. I think the Celtics should sign Kai Jones. Let him and Al Horford, try to create something there between a young guy and an old guy, and try to kind of steer him the right way. But again, all of that saying that he has to want to be better, and I know that's a cliche that everyone uses quite a bit, but I genuinely mean it. You have to want to be better to be better. So if Kai Jones wants to be better and wants to continue his NBA career, the Celtics taking a chance on him and letting him work with Al Horford, I think would be a very advantageous for Kai Jones and what NBA potentially might still have.
Mm-hmm. Because he does have talent. He does have talent, but he got to get his head set on straight. Because I'm looking at this they had announced on September 30th, at least the Hornets, that he wouldn't participate in training camp and he'd be out indefinitely after a series of erratic posts from his social media accounts. And then on the 9th, he publicly requested a trade on Twitter, which is now X, and then got waived 2 days later, which was yesterday. So I guess to sum everything up that's going on in Charlotte, Jones needs the right guidance.
You know what it sounds like,
needs,
actually, Kajan, to wrap it all up, and I don't mean to interrupt you here. Everyone needs guidance. They need to get some veterans in the front office and in the locker room, players and coaches alike, that have a standard that will be upheld. Because obviously Charlotte has no standard. And I don't mean that to be disrespectful to anybody in the Charlotte organization. And I'm not going to be listening to this anyway, but regardless. Obviously the standard is not high enough if you have athletes acting and doing things like Miles Bridges, like Kai Jones, And I'm not saying that they're not good players, that they couldn't be great players, but they need someone to hold them accountable, and it seemingly is like no one is holding them accountable for their actions. They need some leaders inside that organization and inside that locker room that they desperately, desperately need. And maybe that's bring Kemba Walker back, Cage. Bring Kemba Walker back to Charlotte. Let him finish out his career where he started it.
Mm-hmm.
And be a leader inside that locker room and bring some of these young guys to where they need to be professionally.
Yeah. Because what's happening right now, ain't it? Like, it's a whole mess. It's a whole mess, and maybe bring somebody like Kemba Walker, or I'm trying to think. Trying to think of
Dwight
like a
Howard.
better.
Bring Dwight Howard back, ironically. Bring I'm trying to think of other older guys who haven't technically retired yet. But honestly, any guy that has high character, anyone that has been seen in the past as a high character guy, are the people they should be looking at. Anyone who, has a reputation of being somebody that, does their job, does it well, does it right, but does it in a certain way.
Yeah,
A leader of sorts, I guess, is what I'm really getting at.
I
Is
say
they need
somebody maybe somebody like Corey Joseph.
somebody like, I'll say Kelly Olynyk for the Canadian team.
Mm-hmm. Because you're right. Everybody on that Hornets team needs guidance, because like they be in the headlines for reasons other than basketball, and it ain't the right reasons.
And it's not the right. Yeah, exactly. It's the complete wrong off the court issues that have been costing them time and time again.
And on top of that, double whammy, they're not moving forward as an organization, and they're losing games.
And losing a lot of it.
So
You got LaMelo Ball, who misses plenty of games. With injury.
and then there's like, should they have picked Scoot over Brandon?
Yeah, and that whole debacle.
Like, for talent over fit. There's just a whole bunch of things going wrong, like going wrong with that Hornets organization, and it would have been easy to play Michael Jordan, but now
Michael
he's not
Jordan's
there.
gone. Yeah, now he's gone.
Now he's gone. So it's like,
Who do we blame now?
honestly, Mitch Kupchak at this point, because it's like he needs to shoulder some of the blame too, because he came from a reputable organization in the Lakers.
Oh, reputables. They're a legendary organization. I'm not sure reputable is the word I would use, Kajan.
Okay, legendary. But the Lakers never had any of this nonsense go down.
Relative.
I mean, not like this.
Not these type off the court issues, but they've had off the court issues in LA, which is why I say reputable is in my opinion, is a little iffy.
But it definitely was handled better than what's going on.
I'm not sure that's hard, KJ, but I agree with you.
But the fact that we have to like bring that up is an issue.
Is a problem.
And like where is he in all this? Like, what is he doing in all this? What is new ownership doing in all this? What is the coaching staff doing in all this? Like, there isn't just one person to blame for this now. And it was the popular one was to blame Jordan because of
he was a bad owner. We can be honest about it. He was a bad owner.
He was a
great player, bad owner.
Absolutely. But now we're figuring out he wasn't the only person at blame for this.
I do think it was a little naive to just blame Jordan, but I completely agree with you. It's showing now evidently that he was not obviously the only problem. And reality is it is his circus though, so it is his fault ultimately, but it's not only his fault. Obviously, there's lots of other things that have been going on in that organization that have been rather mishandled and misused. So that Hornets organization, in my opinion, Cage, it's a right cleansing. You fire most, if not all, the executives. You fire most, if not all, of the coaching staff. You clean house and start from scratch, because the only way you're going to be able to get exactly what this team needs, which is a facelift of facelifts.
Exactly. And maybe like worst comes to worst, I don't think they will do this. But if you want to build things the right way, maybe trade LaMelo and bring
Do a
in some
full
culture.
rebuild. Do a full rebuild. Really.
Yeah. Yeah. If it has to come down to that, then it has to come down to that. Because talent can only mask certain issues for so long. And even then, the Hornets' talent isn't leading to wins.
Well, they just drafted second overall this year, so I think that's evident too.
And arguably, their choice of the second round of that pick could be for the wrong reasons too. It could be like, say, I don't think it'd be like to the degree of Sam Bowie versus Michael Jordan type of catastrophic, but it could be bad because they went for fit over talent. But either way, to sum things all up, a hot mess in Charlotte.
It's a gong show down south, but I agree with Cage. I think we ran out of time. Ran out of patience, ran out of time with the Charlotte Hornets. So that'll be it here for us for Polar Opposites episode. I think technically 17, but Polar Opposites. For Kajan, Theru, Thani Castle, I'm Spencer Bias. Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of Polar Opposites. We'll be back on Sunday at 3 p.m. for the New York Liberty versus Las Vegas Aces Game 3 in Brooklyn at 3 p.m. We'll be bringing you that with our live reactions quarter by quarter. And then on Monday, we'll recap the game and whatever else has happened from now till Monday on our newest episode of your regularly scheduled Polar Opposites. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Hopefully as a fan, come Monday, we'll be talking about a potential game 4.
Potential game 4, which will be on Wednesday, which we would be doing as well if we get that far. But let's get to game 3 on Sunday and our episode on Monday. So again, for Kajan, Theru, Thani Castle, I'm Spencer Byers. Thank you for listening to Polar Opposites here on the Outrage Inc.